new video. I know it's already been a while since 2025 started. It's already mid-February and we're already going through the year, but I still really wanted to make a video highlighting my favorite books that I read in 2024. I read about 60 books and there were some really good books that I still love to this day and I wish to reread one day and that I'm so excited about, and I really want to share with you guys all these books that I read and what my thoughts are on them. The first book I'm starting off with is one of the first books that I actually read in 2024 and it immediately became one of my favorites. So this book takes place in the Icebreaker series. I don't know what the series is called, to be fair, but it's in the same world and it follows two different characters, Russ and Aurora, and they go to become staff at a summer camp. So the setting is amazing. I love the whole summer camp idea. I've always wanted to go to a summer camp in America. Before they meet at the camp, they have a night together at the university, but they don't really know each other, and then later on they meet each other at the camp, where, you know, it's the whole summer vibe. They go through summer activities, the setting is really nice. They make new friends that they have already met. And they both go through some family problems, which they help each other with. And in the end, they fall in love, and it's just such a good book. I really love the story, I really love the dynamics between the two characters, and I really love the whole kind of found family trope in it. It was very nice. The setting was mostly what made me love this book, but I think it's really well written as well. I do think it's much better than Icebreaker. I loved Icebreaker as well, but Icebreaker was kind of, I don't know, there were some points that made me cringe a little, but this book really did not do that. I love this so much and I can only recommend this book. The next book is another kind of summer themed book, which is This Summer Will Be Different. I read this over the summer when I was in Italy and I just loved this so much. Everything about this book is just amazing. It has the coastal town setting. It takes place on Prince Edward Island, an island of this coast of Canada. It has this best friend's brother trope, and they kind of keep coming back to each other, and they both are in love with each other, but they don't want to admit it. You know, throughout the years they were kind of right person, wrong time, but then in this book they end up finding each other again and kind of coming together. And I just really loved the whole setting once again. I think setting in a book is really part of what makes me really love it, and in this book it was so well done. I've always loved the idea of a coastal town, kind of like the Summer I Turned Pretty vibes. I think that type of town is something that I would really love and that really attracts me in reading a book or watching a movie or watching a series. And this book was just perfectly executed. It was done so well, it was written so well. I really liked the dynamic. I also really liked the flashbacks. It kept going like back and forth between time jumps, and I think that's a really crucial part. I think the narrative was really good, and I also loved the family dynamics and the friendships that were included in this book. The next book that I read was The Au Pair Affair. This was one of my 5-star reads this year and I really love this. I love almost all of Tessa Bailey's books. They're really good, but I really like the dynamics. So this book follows Tallulah and Burgess. Tallulah becomes the au pair of Burgess' daughter and they get really close together, and Burgess is kind of from the start, even like before the book happens, but what takes place in like the previous book, he's already obsessed with her, and that's what I love so much. It's definitely he falls first, and I just love that. I love it when a man has to beg on his knees for a woman, and that's definitely the case in this. He has to work for her and she's also kind of in love with him, but she doesn't want to admit it, and I just really like that about this. And it's very hard to get. They have really good banter and just the story is so good. I would definitely recommend this if you like a single dad sports romance, because that's what this is, and it's just amazing. It's forced proximity because they live together and it's just so good. The next book that I really loved is You with a View. This is a book that I hadn't really seen much online when I bought it, but I was really excited to read it because first of all I really loved the cover. I think it's a really good cover. It looks so cute, like with the sunset, and I also really love the idea of this book. So this book follows Noelle. She's a woman who's trying to find her way in the world, what she wants for her career. She doesn't really know yet what way she's going. She moved back in with her parents and she's kind of trying to find out her grandmother's legacy. She ends up tracking down one of her grandmother's childhood loves, and they meet and they exchange stories, but then she finds out that guy is the grandfather of someone who was in high school with her and was her academic rival, and that is Theo. And they end up going on a road trip, the three of them, because that was the road trip that the grandfather of Theo and Noelle's grandmother really wanted to do together before they were separated. This is a road trip that they end up going on in order to kind of bring back the memories and for Noelle to really say goodbye to her grandmother that passed away. And I just love this because it's very much enemies to lovers, but they also have kind of an instant attraction, and there's also academic rivals, and those are like tropes that really speak to me. And I just think this is a really good book. It was very surprising. It was really well written, and I've never really read a story with this plot, so it was really original, and that is definitely what gave it the extra points for the 5-star that I ended up giving it. The next book is not really surprising, since the rest of these books are already, some of them are already in my video from last year where I talked about my favorite books from 2023, and I had to include one of the books that I also ended up reading in 2024 from this series, which is Hopeless by Elsie Silver. I think everyone knows what these books are about. They're cowboy romance. They're about 4 brothers, and then there's also a book where it's about the sister of one of the brothers' wives. And this one is the last book in the series, and it follows the last brother, Bo, and he's kind of traumatized from going to war and being stuck there and having some really traumatizing experiences. And then it's also about Bailey, who is someone who lives in town, and her family is kind of notorious. They also have a ranch, and her family is really bad. Her brothers are really annoying, and her father is really bad as well, and they don't treat her well. And she works in a bar in town, and she kind of has a bad reputation because of her family. And Bo and Bailey start fake dating or get fake engaged in order to, it's kind of as a bet, because Bailey is like, I bet that if we were together and we would end up married, that I would be able to get a job in town and that people would start liking me. And Bo's like, no way that's the case, because these people just have their prejudices. And Bo is like, I'm not that good of a person for people to start liking you because of me, you know. And along the way, they obviously fall in love. They get together. It's a very steamy book. It's amazing. I just love this dynamic. And I think this is my second favorite from the entire series. And it's also the final book. Most of the time when I'm reading book series, like the farther you go, like the lesser fun the books get. But in this series, that really wasn't the case at all. And I just love this book. You should read the entire series if you're into cowboy romance. There are so many tropes in this, that you have a single dad, you have a accidental pregnancy, you have enemies to lovers, you have fake dating, fake engagement. It's just all the good tropes are in this series, and I think you should definitely read this if you're into this kind of thing. Next is a book that is a little bit different, but was really fun as well, which was Bride by Ellie Hazelwood. So I've kind of, when I was younger, I was really interested in series like The Vampire Diaries and Teen Wolf and kind of these mythological creatures. And this book follows that. It is about a vampire girl, Misery, and a werewolf, Alpha Low, and I think that's how I pronounce his name. And they are sort of mated to each other. They get married, and it's a really complex book. You should definitely read it. I don't think I can say too much about it because it's so complex, but it's about the vampire and werewolf world and their dynamics and how they act with the humans. And then there are a lot of things that happen in this book, but I think it's really good. It is so romantic, so good, and it's so well written. And it wasn't what I expected from Ellie Hazelwood, because she writes she writes all these women in STEM kind of books, and this is so different from her. But it's so good as well, and especially because I've loved these type of topics. You don't need to know anything about these creatures before, and you can just, if you're confused, you can just look it up online. There's so much about this. But yeah, I think this book is really interesting, and it's very cute. It's very star-crossed lovers. And yeah, I definitely think if you're into kind of the supernatural, that this would be a good fit for you. Next is another book that includes werewolf. These are the only two like kind of supernatural books that I gave 5 stars this year. But the next is The Fake Maid by Lana Ferguson. And this book is really different because it's like werewolves in the normal world, and they are doctors in this case. And I really love a hospital setting, and this is really well executed in this book. And it's about a Alpha, who's like a doctor, and an Omega, and she's a nurse or like kind of a doctor in practice. I don't know the terms, to be honest. But Mackenzie is the doctor in practice. Noah is a doctor, and he has kept it hidden that he's an alpha, because in their universe, alphas are like really prominent and they're known for being kind of aggressive if they are not mated, and he's an unmated alpha. So the board eventually of the hospital finds out that he is. So in order to not get fired, he asks Mackenzie to fake date him and be his fake mate, because that way he will not be fired. And she obviously is kind of against it, because she's like, well, there's nothing really in it for me. But eventually she's like, okay, fine, I'll do it, because she thinks he's really hot. And there are some other things that I don't really remember. But there's this one other problem, is that she's an omega. And the alphas and omegas are kind of like, there's like a really specific thing about them being combined together. And them like mating and being together. And I don't really know anymore what the deal is with this. But there's like, she keeps it hidden from him. And that's like a really big deal. And they eventually end up, yeah, there's some really, really good scenes in this. And I just really love the story dynamic. And I thought it was really original as well. I love the supernatural, but how it was combined with being normal life, because they were basically just humans. And with just kind of like these weird supernatural traits. But overall, this was really good. And I really loved the fake dating. Obviously, that's one of my favorite tropes. And the hospital setting was super good. So I think if you are interested in supernatural books as well, that are not too much supernatural and are not too fantasy, but that are mostly focused on romantic scenes and comedy, then you would really like this. So the last two books that I want to mention in this video are from the same series. And I think they are both worth mentioning, because they are just really good. And they're a series of multiple books. I think it's still going on, and there are more books being released. But the first one I've already read in 2023, and the other two I read this year. The first one is The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, and the next one is The Christmas Tree Farm. So both of these are really good. They're set in the same small town. This one follows Hazel and Noah, and they kind of go on an adventure, because Hazel is almost 30 and she feels as if she has neglected her kind of youth, and that she hasn't really done anything and hasn't really done anything to be proud of. You know, she works in a bookstore and she hasn't really done any adventurous things, and she gets Noah on board in order to help her go on more adventures, and they end up falling in love, obviously. I think this is a really fun book, and I think the dynamic between Noah and Hazel is really good, because Noah is very adventurous and very all over the place, and he's not really tied to one place, except for that he's recently moved to the small town. And Hazel is very much like family oriented, and she's very much focused on helping her friends and working at the bookstore and kind of sticking to her own comfort zone. And I think that Noah is really good at getting her out of this comfort zone, and they are a perfect match. They are each other's opposites, and they just work really well together. And I think that was really well executed in this book. I also obviously like the setting of the small town. I think this was really good. And yeah, a bookstore is always fun to read about. I always like books that go about someone working in a bookstore. You know, one of my favorite movies is actually You've Got Mail, which is also about kind of these rival bookstores. So I always like it when I find a book that's kind of like that. And the story wasn't overall like this, but it definitely had the same bookstore setting. And that was really cute and really fun. And I think you would really like this if you're into small town, like someone having kind of an existential crisis about their lives. You know, it's very realistic, and I think that's what mostly attracted me to this book. And the last one is The Christmas Tree Farm, as I already mentioned. I love books that are in Christmas time. They are just amazing. And this is about a girl, Kira, who moved to Dream Harbor, and she bought a Christmas tree farm. She's kind of been spoiled her entire life by her parents, and she has a twin sister who moved to Denmark, and she kind of feels like she hasn't really done anything on her own, and she wants to be independent and show people that she can build a life on her own, because her sister did that as well. And it's kind of about learning new things, also stepping out of your comfort zone, growing up as well. Then she meets Bennett, who is the brother of one of the characters in the previous books, and he kind of has this savior complex. He really wants to help her, and he has done that in all his previous relationships. That's kind of a mistake that he keeps on making, that he keeps on helping people and doing everything for other people without thinking of himself. And that's something that he really wants to learn. And in the case of Kira, he feels like he needs to help her as well, but she's also really focused on, I want to do this on my own, I want to do this on my own, I want to learn how to do things, I don't want to accept any help. So they're a very good combination for that, because he needs to learn to let her do things on her own, and she needs to learn how to also let people help her. They really need to accept like the opposite. I think they're a really good dynamic. She loves his dogs, which is really cute. It takes place on the Christmas tree farm. They have like this part where there's kind of forced proximity because they are stuck in a snowstorm, and it's just really good. I think their relationship was really, really fun. They really learned how to be apart from each other but also be together, and how to live their own separate lives but still love each other and work together. It's really about strengthening their own weaknesses and being comfortable on their own. And that's something that I found really interesting in this book, because it's something that I haven't really read about, and it's something really relatable, because being on your own is a very scary thing, but a lot of people, me as well, need to really learn how to do that. And I think that that's really well executed in this book. So those were all the books that I really loved this year. There are so many more. I mean, I read 60 books. These are only 9 of them. But there are so many more that I love. But I really wanted to make a small collection of the books that really sprung out to me when I was looking through my Goodreads. And those were all the books. I hope you liked them as well. Let me know what your opinions of these books are and what your favorite read was of 2024. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye!